Welcome to the Tenant Podcast. I'm Todd Pearson here with my friend and partner. You know him as quite possibly the most interesting man in the world, the one and only Wes Brown.
Todd, it is quite possibly the most interesting man in the world, coming to you live from Rapid City, South Dakota.
I'm happy to see you, man.
I'm happy to see you. It's always a pleasure when I can sit down via the internet and have a nice chat with you.
Yeah, it's like you're just next door.
I know.
It'd be better if you were here, but hey.
Believe me, I wish I could.
And we're still COVID free.
We are. Although COVID is trying to get me.
COVID. Yeah, COVID's coming for you, Wes.
I know.
Lock your doors.
Like we were up like 400% from last week. And one of my coworkers at work went home with the COVID and was just at another place that they had a worker go home with the COVID. So it's coming after me, but I wear a mask. So they can't catch this mask ranger.
I wore a mask yesterday with an exception of the photo that I posted on our Instagram. Otherwise, I was masked yesterday because I went to Meow Wolf and got to play around like a big, like 6-year-old. That was awesome.
I've seen some pictures from different people and it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I hung out with Drossman, and who set all this up is Topher. His girlfriend was able to secure us tickets. So shout out to his girlfriend Heather Renee. Yeah. So I highly suggest that everybody go check it out once it opens. It'll probably be crazy as all get out for the first few months or whatever, but definitely something you have to experience firsthand, and it really does engage people. And like I said, it's like being a 6-year-old. You're running around like touching stuff and flipping levers and making music, and it's a big light show. It's really cool.
Well, and I just have to say, if you could go to the landfill with Dan Drossman and you would have a blast.
That's true.
I mean, he's fun just to be around. So whether it's Meow Wolf or the Denver landfill, you're going to have a blast with Dan Drossman. There's no doubt.
That is so true. I love that guy. So Dan, you got name dropped in 2 consecutive episodes. No matter what, you're always part of the podcast.
That's right.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you listening in an age where there are thousands of podcasts vying for your attention. The fact that you're here with us listening to our little podcast means the world to Wes and myself. You can keep up with the goings on of Tenant on our Instagram at Tenant Podcast, and follow us on Facebook on our Tenant Podcast page, where we post links to our newest episodes and goings on each and every week. And of course, you can always tap into our archives and get info on our website at tenantpodcast.com.
And I have to say, Todd, to our listeners out there, if you like what you're hearing, share and rate us, because that's how we get more listeners, and share it with 2 or 3 friends. If you don't like this podcast, share it with 2 or 3 people you dislike, because obviously you want to share the pain.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'd love to have your support.
Share it with those you love and share it with those you hate. We don't care. Just share it. All right. On to the art. We are absolutely honored to be able to talk with our next guest, a phenomenal artist. Her work has been exhibited in the Westmoreland Museum of American Art and the Butler Institute of American Art. She just had a solo exhibition come to a close at the Sager Broadus Gallery in Columbia, Missouri, entitled For a Time They Took Pleasure There. And she has a solo exhibition that opens September 10th, the day after this episode is released, at the BRDG Project here in Denver, Colorado, entitled Elegy for What Has Passed. Welcome to the program, Brenda Stumpf.
Oh, how are you?
That's all we get.
Great.
Oh, no.
How are you?
It's great to be here.
Awesome. That's what we like to hear. It's great to be here. It's great to be here with you, Brenda. Oh my God. I just met you like last month when I was in Denver, and spent a couple hours together, I believe. And it was a lot of fun. We had a good time, and down at the BRDG Project, in the basement of the BRDG Project.
Yep.
So that was pretty awesome.
That was a nice evening.
Yeah.
Well, and then Todd got to go to the vault with me. Was it last weekend? Which is my storage unit. I call it the vault. So
And it's big. It is a vault.
Well, yeah, it's a big art storage.
How was that, Todd?
It was spectacular. So I'm just going to say this. If you have the opportunity to check out Brenda's work in person, do yourself a favor. Go do it. It needs to be seen in person. It's one thing to see it on the internet, and I'll give you a place that you can go to see it here in a second, but it's truly something that should be experienced firsthand in person. It's
tricky, that digital media.
It is. And especially
flat.
Yeah.
And tiny on your fucking phone. Yeah, it doesn't. Go see art in person, people. Go see art in person. Yes.
Get a vaccine. General statement. Mask up. And go see some art.
Hey, what size is like one of your pieces? Like a big piece for you would be what big? How big?
Well, I mean, some of the work that's in the that'll be in the show at Bridge, because that's where people might see it. Okay. I'm not going to have a party at my vault. We really won't all fit. One piece like 7 feet. I think the tall piece that's going to be in there is about 90 inches. So they're big. They're pretty material heavy. So when you got something 90 inches big, right? 7 feet long or tall, you really get a good sense of that on Instagram, don't you? Yeah, really good. It's like a postage stamp. Yep.
Right. All that set up just for me to say that. All that set up for me to say that.
Yep. Yeah.
You're right.
It is what
everybody needs to come down and see your stuff in person.
Well, I think in general terms, we all need to spend more time in front of work with their eyeballs on it. The way the materials are, the way the light reflects it, the scale, being able to walk towards it, being able to walk away from it, seeing works at how they work with each other. I mean, those things are, important. And also it's a great way to share. I mean, that's the thing, like you share things on the social media and your website and things, and there's a wonderful reasons for that. But when I get to exhibit my work, it's really this beautiful sharing, and I really delight in the presence of the work there and the presence of the people there and how that interacts. So yeah, it's extremely important to me.
So as we get started here, I want to direct our listeners to your website, Brenda. It's brendastumpf.com, and that's BRENDASTUMPF.com. And you can find her on Instagram at Brenda_Stumpf.
Correct. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can't even tell you how delighted I am to be living back in Denver. So, which is funny because what my show opens at Bridge on the 10th. I remember it was September 11th of last year that I got in my car from Pittsburgh and did the 3-day drive across the country. And so it's kind of like this little beautiful anniversary of a big ass life change. I lived here for a while, and then I left to go to Pittsburgh for 6 years and came back. So it's the first time I'll be exhibiting back in Denver, since I left. So it's a real treat. And I'm really thrilled to see some people I haven't seen in a long time and kind of celebrate this moment for me.
That's incredibly exciting.
It's special.
Yeah,
it is. It's really special.
It hasn't even been a year that you moved back to Denver. And what was the catalyst of you moving from Pittsburgh back to Denver?
Well, I had moved to Pittsburgh back in, let's see. What's the best way to put this in a nutshell is, I'd moved to Denver back in like the end of 2008, and I was here until 2015. And I was with someone, and we decided to go buy property in Pittsburgh because I think it was around the time the legalization of marijuana, and all the spaces to buy were just crazy, and like they're crazier now. However, decided to go out of state and buy something where you could have multiple studios and a live space. And so it was a very large 13,000 square foot church building that we renovated over a period of time in Pittsburgh. And that relationship ended, and a big, huge shift in my life. Then I made a decision to be in integrity and let things fall apart. And then I decided that I wanted to move back to Denver. So that is what brought me here, is to like, let me start this new chapter. I have a lot of friends, my family, we all grew up in Ohio, but we're all out here now. So it really felt like exactly what I needed to do. I had no idea what that entailed, and it's a crazy ass story, and I could write a book, but I'm not going to. But suffice it to say, it's the best decision I made. The decision wasn't hard. It was all of the thousands of things that had to line up, and I had to rock out like a soldier to get myself here. And I am here. And let me tell you, it's been the best year. As everything fell apart that needed to, now it's like this life is just continuing to blossom and grow. And it just puts a big smile on my face. So I don't know how this is all going to unfold. Life is all different now. There's no preconceived what's supposed to happen with me, my career, personally. Everything's new. And just being in that moment of just knowing like a year anniversary is coming up and my life looks completely different. It seems like magic, and I know it's not, but it's lovely. So yeah, big old smile. Lots of work, but yeah, big smile. Happy to be in where I'm at.
It is magic.
Yeah. Let's not just get it started, because, I'll get woo-woo real quick.
It's amazing what the universe will provide for you when you're ready.
You step up to the plate and you do things. And I kind of call it whack-a-mole. I don't know, like back in the day, it was like, I don't know, some weird little child's place of things, but where it's just like game, you put this energy to whack this thing, and then this other thing kind of comes up in another place. And it really does feel like earlier in my life, where you think you put your energy in one specific way, and you're waiting and waiting and waiting for that energy to come back in the same format and the same place that you put that into, and it doesn't. It's over here to the right and a little bit, it shifts. And I think what it feels like now is I'm starting to realize where I put my energy that was really integrous and powerful and consistent, and realizing where it was starting to pop up from. And it was on these different places, and really seeing that kind of cycle. And I'm starting to notice it more and more. So, call it what you will, but it's kind of like a little law of the universe. There's something potent there when you're realizing that in a conscious way. So I've been playing with that a lot, and it seems to be treating me well, and life has got a nice momentum to it. I mean, in the middle of a fucking pandemic, you never know what's possible. And so it's going to be fun to look back on this. Give me even another year to kind of put things in perspective, because it's still kind of fresh in a way. It's still strange how everything played out. And art-wise, I'm interested to see where I'm going to go too, because there's a lot that's happened. And you think about big life transitions, you kind of reevaluate, you kind of do a survey of a lot of things in your life. And for me, art is definitely a huge portion of how I feel myself and my life in the world. It's kind of, it's like my feelers out there. So I'm looking back at the last, 25, 6, 7, years that I've been doing this. And now it's kind of like, well, shit, I don't want to go around the same way again. So what is new? What's calling me? I don't like to be an autopilot, and that's never been my thing. So what is this openness now for the art? And it's intriguing. Curiosity is, I think, your best friend, because as soon as you lose that, you're fucked. You really are.
Right.
You are. You
might as well just die, right?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Well,
if you're not curious and you're not engaged, then what's the point?
It feels like it, because it feels really like, if you will look at like frequencies, it looks really kind of blah. It has no peaks. It has no valleys. It's, curiosity really gives you, it's a little bit of a roller coaster. You never know what you're going to get. You up and down. And then all of a sudden these little downloads happen, and these little aha moments and when you get them at the beginning process of something new, because I finished a bunch of work for that Missouri show that you mentioned, and that's done. And I'm showing work that's already been made for Bridge, and it's newer. I mean, it's newer in the last few years, but my feelers are out there, and it's just at the beginning.
Well, I think going back to when you said having another year or so for perspective, I think another year, 2 years, 5 years from now, when we look back at this time, it's going to be interesting to see, this has been very devastating for certain segments of the population. And then there's people like me that I didn't miss a day of work all last year because the way South Dakota structured their closings or the lack thereof. But it's been very rewarding in growth and opportunity for other segments like the art market. I think people, we've talked about this before. There's been a lot of artists that have done really well this last year, and I think it'll continue. So I think perspective is going to be interesting another year or two down the road, just to look back and see how everything panned out.
Yeah, I mean, and I even do like with my work too. I mean, I'm not an architect when it comes to making my work, which means like some people like have a really specific plan and they follow through with that plan. I really don't have a plan other than obviously, you have, here's the size of your canvas and here's the size of your, there's very general things that set it up. But even what my work means to me in that perspective, it takes, I can get insights and I sort of have it has like a resonance of things that are going on in my life when I'm making the work and or things that are kind of, I call it a constellation because it's like my life. And then there's things I'm reading and there's all these kinds of touchstones and they kind of like make this constellation. So there's all these different points in which to kind of reference what's going on with my work. But what it really means, it sometimes like it's years before I look back and realize just how crazy there's a part of me, other people have said this too, that sort of have a better perspective of the inner workings of what's going on in your life and those materials, the way you work with the material, it all makes so much sense. I mean, it feels right in the moment of making it, but like when you have a year, 2, 3, and I look back, I go, holy shit. It's like something new, more than I did in the, my intellect that was playing out and making these associations with states of being and the things that I felt and the things that I knew in another place. And I mean, literally I could talk about that for hours because it's still, I don't understand it, but trusting the process enough to where I don't get into like some kind of mental, like that architecture, I'm planning everything and everything has to have a meaning right when I make. It's like, no, I remember, like, I love David Lynch, and he talks about when he was, he makes his movies, trusting your ideas, and all these pieces will come together, and do you have to make complete sense of it at the moment? And I don't have that need. I don't have that need when I'm making art. I don't make things because I know things. I make things to figure it out or to make sense or discharge energy out into I don't know what I'm doing for the most part. I guess maybe I resisted because it would just feel boring, and it's not why I have these compulsions to take things apart and glue them together. And I read all this things like poetry and listen to music, and all this stuff whirls together. Like I said, like a constellation with these points. And so it's like this hologram in my head of this huge world that some of this work makes for me. And to think that I can make sense of all that, like intellectually, I've never found that to be my thing. I wish it was, because I would feel like I would sound more articulate, and it would be like a point A to point B, and I could, make schematics about it, and but it's not how it happens for me. So I don't pretend to be able to do a clean cut for people, what it means, or
You mentioned something very dear and close to my heart. You mentioned earlier that you're from the great state of Ohio. And
suburb of Cleveland, Parma. Grew up in Parma.
Yeah, Parma. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say this on the podcast, because my wife will be disappointed that everything great comes from Ohio. Brenda's from Ohio, and all kinds of great people come from Ohio. Artists, astronauts. You can
make me the T-shirt. I will wear the T-shirt proudly.
We're gonna make a T-shirt. That's it.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My birthday's December 3rd. You got a little bit of time.
Okay. It's coming. But Parma, there's a lot of notable people that come from Parma.
We all try to get the fuck out and do something.
So here's some people that are from Parma, and Wes is shaking his head.
I knew you were going there. That's what I love it. I love it because I want to know. I want to know who's from Parma.
Okay. John D. Rockefeller
Mm-hmm.
founded Standard Oil Company. Alan Ruck, the actor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who that is?
No way.
And for those who don't know who Alan Ruck is, it's Cameron from Ferris Bueller. And he also played
Chrissy Hines from Akron, which is only like just south of Cleveland. So
Benjamin Orr from the Cars. He was the bassist
Mm-hmm.
and co-lead
Mm-hmm.
singer of the Cars.
I think Maynard, James Keenan from Tool, was in Ohio for quite a while. I think he lived there.
Ted Levine, the actor. You know who Ted Levine is? Ted Levine played the creepy
Silence
guy
of the
on
Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah. Love that guy.
He was also he played the cop on Monk, Leland Stottlemyre. Stottlemyre. Yeah. And then there's a couple astronauts, Michael Good and Jim Lovell. Jim Lovell. Lovell, that's his name.
Yeah.
Jim
Apollo
Lovell.
13.
Yep. Apollo 13, Apollo 8, Gemini 12, Gemini 7. So famous astronaut. And here's one you probably didn't know. Hector Boiardi, Chef Boiardi, died in Parma in 1985.
Wow.
So there you go. A little lesson
Sorry.
about Parma, Ohio.
Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails. He was included.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
And then
Face.
Brenda Stumpf.
Yeah, and there I am. And here I am. In
Amongst
Denver.
other greats. Amongst
good God,
other greats.
All right.
So I want to know what was life like for you young growing up in Parma, Ohio?
It was really delightful. I have to say, very blue collar. My dad was a railroad engineer. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for a while, and then she did like some cake decorating and things like that. And then she ended up working at JCPenney. So it's like the thing for me was that looking back at things and having gone to art school for a couple of years and then quit is what my mom and dad did taught me more. And it just became like a skin, like you don't question it. It's just the way that you do things. Is that my dad raced cars and showed cars like antique muscle cars while he's full-time job as a road engineer. So like I would be at the racetrack, cotton in my ears with my sister, and my mom would help me taping off the car, and while my dad was painting it, and she'd be under the car helping him. So you just think about these associations, like this garage full of like these car parts, and he's taking everything apart, making it beautiful and sanding, and and everything would be repainted, and it was like then he'd be like racing it on, it's like, and then you look at my work, you're like, yeah, it's the idea of using your hands and manipulating things and putting them back together and craftsmanship. And it's just, it's an endless array of things that I just saw and learned. And it was just like being steeped in this environment of doers. My mom drywalled the whole basement, took apart to play her piano. She's making these giant fucking wedding cakes that were beautiful. She was an artist herself. So it's like very feminine things about my work, very masculine things about my work, very having to make way more work than needs to be done to make my work, but follow through. So like that environment in that house, and still my parents are just, they keep doing it. My dad's still doing it. He's not racing cars, but he's still got a ton of it. My brother does it. So those types of things are just, you can't disconnect that. That's a huge part of, I think, just the materiality. Now, the other things that come from me is like, when I think about my youth is, playing in the woods in this enchanted kind of place where I grew up, where you just disappear for the day into the woods, your friends, dappled sunlight, crick walking and turning things over, crawling up things. That curiosity in nature then it is a huge, huge part. My mom and dad played music too. We had pianos and saxophone. Things were always happening. So you start to really like look at my work, and my youth has a huge, rich kind of place where these things were growing of interests of stuff. But I do remember a very young age, I don't even know if I could read, these horrible looking end tables, like 1970s giant wooden things, but they were filled to the brim with National Geographic. And I remember literally, I don't know, like hundreds of these things. And I would just sit in the middle of the room and literally look at all of them. And it was like the cosmos, under the sea, dead people, skeletons, treasure, old temples, old photographs, like anything that felt like old, enchanted, mysterious, ancient texts, you name it. Like it was like I was enthralled. Well, look at my art now. It's just inherently anything mysterious, old, intriguing, something that I want to know the beginnings of things. And then I move through materials. It's beautiful to understand that my upbringing and kind of those things had more impact on me than art school could ever, because when I was in there. Now, mind you, there's tons of people that have amazing experiences. That wasn't my case. So I just left because I think I felt like I had the goods. And so just drop me off in the middle of whatever, and I'll see if I can swim. And that's what I ended up doing, because I really felt like I had a lot of fuel. And I was ready to just dive in. So I dove in after I quit, the education portion, and I tried to do the best to fill it in later in life. Those things that I just said are so important from my youth, but that's what comes to mind immediately.
So you talk about your parents being makers and doing things and being surrounded by it. Was art part of the equation in your youth?
Yeah, my mom, she could illustrate anything and draw anything. Art was always around. Ever since I can remember, I literally knew what I was going to do. Now I had that. It was more like a feeling rather than a like articulation of language. But I was 6 years old, kindergarten. It was like sitting there, pens, pencils, the whole thing, drawing. It was like done. I was like, I knew there was a comfort level. Those tools felt like extensions of who I was, being able to express myself like that. And literally all through grade school, it was nothing but art, like the awards and the things and the teachers and the accolades and the kind of connection and the mirroring of, hey, you got something, this is good. And mind you, it was, more like illustration. And then I went into high school and it was more like commercial art programs and the vocational and things like that. So by the time I went to art school for those 2 years, I thought I was going to be like an illustrator in graphic design. And then I met all these great people throwing paint and all this. I was like, what the fuck is going on? This is way more exciting. I don't want to do these things. So I basically ditched it and then started like that kind of inquiry into why I felt what I felt and compulsions and things, and like educating myself into, the more contemporary art world rather than just the vocational job portion of art. But that was all through grade school, all through junior high and high school, was nothing but art. Yeah. All the time. I didn't play sports. I wasn't a team player. I like to be by myself. Yeah. Yeah. A little bit of a loner in that way. But
at what point in art school do you just say, fuck this? Were you sitting in a class or anything, or what was it? It was this agitation. I just remember because really, I think I blocked out a lot. I have to say, I really think I didn't like me. I mean, I have to say, like, I was a very agitated, frustrated, couldn't find my ground, couldn't find my people. So it's just like kind of like digging around, like, this isn't right. Everything I looked at and I was doing in the class was like, this isn't right. I just kept, this isn't right. This doesn't feel right. And just, I was just probably not very fun to be around, because it was like, this sucks on every level. And so what happened, though, and this gets to a bigger point that I really feel strongly about, is that contrast is your best friend, because when you know what you don't want, you start to actually define what you do want. And then the fucking point is, and then you have to change something, and you have to go after the things that, if you say this is not what you want and you define your preference, then you need to figure that out for yourself. So what I did, looking back, is I got my first art job. I quit art school and got my first art job. So I had it in, because I was at Columbus College of Art and Design at the time. And there was this place called like Media Play. I don't know, they're around. It's like books, movies, and music. And so I was doing these giant, like 4-foot and then 8-foot illustrations and copying things of like whatever the book cover was and the music and blah, blah, blah. It was great. And so it was my first art job. And then I was like, okay. And then I ended up moving back up to Cleveland and doing other things art-wise, and then started showing my work. So
I got so frustrated but I had to figure out, so what was I going to do? And I was like, well, how can I find something to do and get paid for it? So that was my first like step. And that's what I did.
When you started showing your own work, what was that like? What, like what genre or,
So, well, it's so funny to look back. I was like, God, it's been a really long time. I was contracted. I worked for 3 years with an iconographer and a group of people up in Cleveland, because I moved back up to Cleveland, and it was amazing. And I think Nick passed away, but Christine Vegas, I'm pretty sure she's still in Cleveland and still an iconographer there. And I work with a bunch of artists and her doing, like Byzantine cathedrals, giant Jesus, 14-foot Marys, gilding the hell out of the hell out of a church. That's funny.
At least you gilded the hell out of it. Yeah. So it's a nice church. I did.
I gilded the hell out of a church. That's great. Oh, God. So I learned a lot about scale, and it just, I was on like 30-foot, 40-foot, like, huge scaffolding. And I so much that I learned and had a great time doing that. And at the same time, that's when I started to show my work. And that work, we could just crack open a bottle and have a good time looking at my old work, which that's not going to happen this moment. But the work that I was making early on, it was abstract. It was very flat. It was colorful. It was calligraphic, almost like musical. Very, very different than what I do now. But I did well, meaning I enjoyed what I was doing at the time. I was more into like a Picasso-esque things and at that time, whatever. And I was doing more canvas work. And like I said, it was very flat. But I was showing and I was selling and I was on my own. And I had a quote unquote contractual job for a little bit, which was art-based. And so life started to feel like, like I can do this. I was doing it. And it was around 2003, I had started adding components, little objects here and there, more like accents on that work. And then I started collecting more things, and it started to look more like my dad taking apart a car in the garage, because I'd like in my apartment, I'd just taken overall, I had an old apartment, tall ceilings. It was pretty big on the west side of Cleveland. So everything just became like a studio. And I was really having these impulses to do like this relief work and sculpture, but I hadn't given myself permission. It was almost like, well, you're not allowed to do. It was a strange thing where I just didn't trust myself, because I was starting to move into this other way of working and these other interests and things that I just was uncomfortable with and I was excited about, but just felt like, is this okay? Is it? And it was when I actually took a trip to drop off a commission to DC. And I visited my friend, and we went to the National Gallery, and the National Gallery had a couple of shows. It was like, one of them was Cy Twombly. I was like, Cy Twombly. Okay. And so there I go. And it's all his sculpture. And I had never seen his sculpture before. And my friend's like, yeah, I'll see you at the end. She's like, I don't get this. This is too weird for me. But what happened was that was this enchanted, beautiful green light for me, because it was it just not the materiality of this stuff, this discarded material strewn together, glued together, plaster. They were all white. They looked like some kind of like these gravestone markers or trophies, or there was like this, all these things were happening, and these classical names of things and history, ancient lore, mythology. And I'm just like, this is like homecoming for me. And thinking about what's back in my apartment / studio is all of these things that felt very similar materials. And I didn't really feel comfortable, but here I am at this beautiful space with this beautiful exhibition. And it was just like, do it, go. It was like finding your other, it's just a kinship of materials and insights. And I went home, and then it was like, that was the first show that I had sculpture, and I did very well, and I was really pleased, and it was a game changer. And it was around 2003 and 4. And that's when everything changed for me. And it was just a different track of making art. And so I kind of left behind one big thing and onto another. So, and it's really kind of kept up that way. And so I think it's just, and now it's that trusting yourself enough to just follow these compulsions and intuition and not, you just give yourself permission to play and to find out what happens.
To explore.
Absolutely. Inside and out.
And I'd read that you had made that trip and how you were affected by that work. So I'm glad you spoke to it.
Yeah, I adored Twombly. I made many trips to New York, and I think about it's still alive, to go see some of those shows at like the Gauguin Gallery, and I think it was the Whitney, and because not only just a sculptor, but I just found and I just made a lot of trips to see a lot of artwork when I was in Ohio, because you could go to Chicago, you could go to New York, you could drive around, and so that was a lot of my education too, is just really spending the time to travel. Getting in my little car and driving and seeing work in person. And that's a big deal. And that, whether it was Lee Bonteque, Peter Coyne, Louise Nevelson, Richard Sear, I mean, I would just drive to go see these shows and just educate myself and just feel what it's like to be in front of this work. And I think that's where I'm at now, is I think I need to do more of that.
Thanks for sharing that name, because I've never heard of him. And so now I get to add another person I can deep dive into. So,
well, and the beautiful thing for me now is, like, I used to spend so much of my, I don't say youth, but whatever, great term right now, since I'm 2 years away. 2 years? I'm close to being 50. Oh my God. So I'm not an art historian. I don't have a bunch of, things past my name. And I think now that I'm older, it's kind of a beautiful gift to just feel like there's so much that I don't know, and I'm so okay with it. And when things come on my radar now, it's just a lovely gift. And I don't pretend to, have all this knowledge, and I have this giant database, and, and so I think whether even music now too, like going back, there's so much music I wasn't into at one point in my life. And now, you got your Apple Music, and you're like, holy shit, how did I miss this? And then you can do the deep dive and go from album to album over decades. And it's the same thing with artists, poetry. And I'm finding it's really delightful to just let yourself off the hook. If you didn't get it, like round one, I was late to the party. Well, I'm getting it now, and it's fun. So, all right.
I want you to take a moment, and I know will be a little bit difficult to do because you do a lot of things, but I want you to describe to our listeners the work that you do in the mediums that you work with.
Yeah. So maybe it's easier to reference, like the work that I'm going to have at Bridge. I did around 2018, because it takes me years to do some of this work. I work on everything at the same time. When I do a big body of work, I like to kind of like grow it from the ground up together. And in this case, it's a lot of paper collage, hand-torn paper. It's manipulated, it's glued, found objects encrusted in paint. That's some of it's very large scale. Sometimes I go in with the paint. Sometimes I take a Dremel, and in the one piece that's the larger piece that's in the show, it's like just a backdrop of hardcover law books. But I went in with a Dremel and a engraver. And so there's all this beautiful abstract text on all the background. And mind you, there was multiple pieces of this in a previous show. This is just one piece that's in the show. And then after I did all this crazy, beautiful hand Dremel abstract text, I went back in with a sanding wheel and sanded the shit out of it, because I didn't want it to be perfect. I wanted to almost like this wall, like you'd see like this something feels old in time. I love feeling that things have been sitting for a while, and they're encrusted, or they're dirty, and they're not quite right, kind of scroungy a little bit. But it's a lot of found and non-traditional materials that have been taken apart and then put back together. I do mixed media collage, again, found paper a lot of the times. But the one thing that was very, I guess, newer is this ink transfers that I've been doing of some photographs that I have taken myself, but specifically for the show that was in Columbia at the BRDG Gallery. Those originally, I had found these little tiny black and white photographs of these women, little tiny things, like a secondhand shop. I had them for years. They were just sitting in a drawer. And then at one point in time, I pulled them out and I was like, what am I going to do with these? I mean, because you have to understand, I'm not interested in the figure for the most part. They're not my thing. I have these little tiny pictures of black and white women. And I started taking a razor blade and slicing out the backgrounds and annihilating their faces. And why I did that, I didn't understand at the time. I was just doing it. And I found it interesting. And that in of itself was like, okay, I have these 10 pieces, and they ended up showing at Sager brought us, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years ago. And then I was supposed to have a residency there during COVID. And then I decided, it's just too much. So they were like, well, we're going to have a solo show. What do you want to do? And I said, I want to do what I planned on doing for the residency, which was taking those small photographs that I had scratched out and making them larger ink transfers. And there was something about experimenting with the plexiglass. So I had wood panels and I had plexiglass that was adhered to the wood panel. And then I did these ink transfers kind of like gridded out. So it's a little difficult to describe verbally, but you take a little image, you put it in Photoshop, I grid it out so that I can just print them in reverse, like on a laser printer. And then I take gel medium and I basically puzzle all of the pieces back together on a larger. So they were like 42 by 30. They weren't huge, but they were larger. And there was something about the milkiness of the way the light hit it. And they're haunting, they're odd. And then and I think for me, again, when I was speaking earlier about like, sometimes you just don't know, like there's a part of you that knows something. And I look back at the time when I first started the actual scratching of the photographs, is that's when I really was agitated and felt very displaced, and life was not right when I was in Pittsburgh. So looking back at all of that and finding kind of going through the last 2 years of my life and who I was, who I am, where I was going, where I was going to live. I mean, you just like, I could go on and on. It would probably, it's kind of like a really dark, weird place. However, those pieces for me, whether it was the original photographs that were scratched and the ink transfers that I did after that, was really like these women became these stand-ins for feelings I had about myself. So it's really fascinating about going through that, kind of seeing that like in a short kind of timeline of hindsight, is that was like the bottleneck, I would call it. And so now it's really like on the other side of something, which is a really beautiful thing to be able to say, because it was so unsure about who. Everything was dismantled. So like when we see these stand-ins, these women, these figures, but they don't have any faces. And then you read the titles. It's really big stuff, but it's nice because you can kind of see that like, wow, there's some steps now beyond that in life. And that's why I'm really interested to see what does happen next, because that's not where I'm at anymore.
So I want to ask something real quick, and this is going to be, and you kind of allude to that just by your last answer. Mm-hmm. So if somebody was like, oh, I love your work, I want to see more of that, because you're not in the same headspace, could you do that or no, not?
I don't. Those images of those, that's done. Ink transfer is not done.
Right.
Not done. I actually have about 3 different series that I would love to jump into. That are actually really haunting, but it's it's actually a space, not people. I took a lot of pictures of the semi-abandoned space in Paris when I was there a little while ago. And there are these really kind of magical, dark, enchanting images that are almost like Alice in Wonderland-ish. They're kind of just what's going on in there. That I have a lot of strange landscapes that I love that I might fool around with. I even have some of my sculpture that I manipulated and did ink transfers of that. Then they become these weird, iconic, like monolith looking structures. So yeah, there's a lot of the ink transfer portion that especially on the acrylic, I know it almost looks like caustic. So there's about 3 different things that I'd like to try with those, but nothing's really stood out. I'm kind of just kind of playing right now, but those photographs and that's done.
I was just kind of curious because you can tell.
And I was like, never say never, because I always say, I say this a lot. I was like, don't ever fucking quote me, because tomorrow I will have a revelation and completely believe something different. And that I give myself permission, and I give other people permission for that too. So, but
it goes to show, like in your case, as opposed to maybe some other artists, everything that you're doing is evoked from you. It's something that is manifested from you, as opposed to, let's say, a portrait painter that, paints beautiful portraits, technically perfect, but it's portraits of somebody else. This art is so expressive in a way that it comes from you.
I can't do it any other way. Can't. There's a commission's always a tricky thing, because you have your, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, in the room, and then you have the person that you're doing it for. I mean, it's a little bit of a different circumstances, but I don't know if anybody will know who I am in 100 years, so you may as well fucking do what you want while you're here on the planet and make it count. So for me, it's just, I know where my integrity, that inner compass is, and when I'm in it and when I'm out of it. And it's a little dance. It's like a little tennis match back and forth while I'm making work. I don't over intellectualize it, but I know what sort of, there's an energy there. There's a parameters there, and you kind of know when you're crossing thresholds that don't seem quite like, I'm kind of, there's different feelings that I get, and I really I want it to be what it needs to be. And I trust that intuition and those impulses a lot. I mean, it's always a little scary. That doesn't go away. I just have the experience now that I know that you get through it. That's all.
To see some of this work that we've just been talking about, I want you to go to Brenda's website, go under the portfolio tab, and find For a Time They Took Pleasure There. And you'll see a bunch of this work that was on display in Missouri, and see what Brenda's really talking about. I love this series. It's really compelling.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And to bring it back to that show that I'm going to have at Bridge is, there's going to be, most of it was from a body of work titled Consecrated. And that was the work that I did, living at that church building and incorporating pieces of that church into the work, and working through some really strange dismantling of life, and also losing people, whether it was the relationship that I knew was hanging on by a thread and needed to be, ended, or like the death of my grandmother at the time, and realizing there's witnesses to your life. And when those people are not there anymore, it's just, especially my grandmother. So there's pieces where it's like, I have all this beautiful costume jewelry and things that I used to play with. And my great aunt had passed away a while ago, and I had some jewelry I used to play with, and she gave me. So, there's very important and potent elements actually in the artwork, because they're like a homage. They're thinking of these people and these beautiful humans that were in my life that are no longer in my life that way. So, when you think about what Elegy and the word and, what has passed, there's a lot that's in the show for me, and it's beautiful. It's sad, but it's a lovely way to honor people's lives and my journey through some letting go, and being quite at peace with it at this point. And I love it. It's a nice place to be now, because it wasn't at that time. And that's make art is quite an amazing thing to be able to do with those things that happen in life, to be able to make work during it, for it. And then you get to look at it, and, you sit with it, and it's, I'm still amazed. Sometimes I can't believe I'm still doing it. And that's like meeting people. I love the continuation of meeting people who are on this creative path too, over time, and being able to see other ways that people do things and why. And that's been just as important as my art making, is to be looking and getting to know and seeing other people's work too. It's been quite a privilege.
Having that connection.
Absolutely. Because I will say, for the longest time, Brenda liked to live in a silo and I didn't need anybody's help and I was okay. And I like to kind of have my boundaries and do my thing. And it's very private about it and blah, 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 blah. And the last 2 years just said, you know what, honey, that ain't working so well for you anymore. So why don't we try something different? And I have. And it's much nicer this way. So, yeah.
So when you were talking about that, like losing your grandmother and working through those kind of things, it reminded me of two people, Richard Avedon, who photographed his father as he was aging and dying and dealing with that. And then I have a really good friend of mine who lives on the West Coast, who used to live in Rapid City, moved back to be home because her mother is going through Alzheimer's, and her name is Christina Barker. And she's been documenting and putting some of those images up on Instagram. And yeah, it's powerful to look at. And I know the work that you put into is going to be powerful to look at when you go see it.
Well, the thing of it is that when I look at the work that's going to be in that show is that there's something about like tearing things and ripping things. And basically as things are dismantling, you're literally taking everything apart. And then at some point in your life, it's dismantled. It's like the cards have fallen and you've got to, at least in my way of thinking and feeling, it's like I've got to get to a place of acceptance and peace. And I have to find like the wisdom in it. I have to find the complete allowing yourself to be present, and then finding ways in which you can, just like that new growth and finding beauty of where you're at while you're healing and all of that. So there's always like my titles to some of my work and things, it's this big, huge layered thing on these panels or canvas or whatever. And whether it references, a state of being, a poem, there's a searching element while I'm trying to figure things out and suss things out. And I think by the time I'm done with the work, I'm kind of like all of that stuff is at a place where things feel, settled. It's always a strange thing because I'm trying to think back to the time when I stopped, when I was at the end of that work. But again, now that I'm in a different place, it's kind of like I'm in a different part of the cycle. So, and I'm not in those sad, melancholy states. I'm not in my house. My life isn't falling apart. My life is blossoming. I'm surrounded by beauty and friendship and camaraderie, and just everything's very different. So what does that look like? That's where I'm at now.
Yeah. What does that look like?
It feels, it's just like this potency, this energy. It's just like this like pregnant feeling of like things are ready to kind of like that shoot is ready to come out of the ground, so it's still under the ground and you kind of don't know yet, it's kind of like waiting, and I can feel it building. And then I have impulses to read something or listen to some, and poetry books and things like that, or, it's all happening right. And it's very subtle. It's almost like I call it like getting clues, or you can only see like, you can't see the full picture, but you can kind of see through a keyhole. You get these little snapshots, these little feelings, these little impulse, and there's a scavenger hunt. It's like, I know now I get the impulse. I could go to A and B and there's no fucking way you're going to C. You have to stay and it's just this little kind of funny little zigzaggy way of finding out where I'm going to do next. And mind you, I don't have the studio I used to have. I am very humbled by my situation that I have the storage unit to put things in, but I have a very small apartment right now, which I am making the most of it. And hopefully things will change. I am sort of peeking around at this time of like, can I have a studio? What does that look like? All of those kinds of things. So, that's part of the kind of like, if I could rub a genie lamp, what I would ask for first is that, but we'll see how this kind of susses out soon. I'm doing my darndest, but in the meantime, I'm making the most of this little apartment I have.
You've mentioned poetry more than a few times.
Yeah.
Talk about how that plays into your work.
Oh, I don't think I'm very good with words. I do love language. And I love where a poet can take your curiosity and it within words. And that to me is really magical because it's quick. These poems are quick and you get these snapshots and these kind of, and so whether it's like I have Rilke around, E. Cummings, I have Neruda, I have, I love Michael McClure. I just picked it up because sometimes it's just picking something up. It shifts everything about what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And it like just captures you and sends you into a completely different world. And so over time, sometimes I'll find a poem that feels right where I'm at. And it's like somebody has languaged this paradigm that I'm in this way that I could have never done with words because I don't use words. I take objects and it's a different way. It's a different creativity, but I'll take it and I'll use it and I'll enjoy it. And sometimes it is the rocket fuel that sometimes can kind of put me in a different direction, but it's also music too. I mean, anything from jazz to classical. I mean, there's like Arvo Pärt is one of my favorite, I call him my composer because he's one of my favorites. And some of his work is so sublime and powerful. So yeah, I tend to go to places like that to maybe shift me out of my own world and sort of like take a little trip someplace else. And sometimes they line up.
New Magazine is our media sponsor for the Tenet podcast. That's NUE. You can follow both the national and the Denver edition of New Magazine on Instagram. The national edition can be found at new_magazine and the Denver edition at new_Denver_magazine. Look to New for compelling stories from the world of art and fashion. Thanks for listening.
I'm Topher Strauss, and you're listening to the Tenet Podcast.
So when you're working in your studio, what does that look like? What does that sound like? Do you have music playing? Is it quiet?
Yeah. No, it's music. I live in an apartment, so I think part of the thing is to, and it depends too. I mean, when I'm building something like a lot of objects and things, it's more aggressive music, it's louder, things like that. But sometimes I'm at the end of something and I'm coding things after I've manipulated and it has all this material on it, and that's usually at the end where it really feels like I've kind of come home with the work. It feels like there's a lot of things that have resolved, and it tends to be like a little softer kind of atmosphere. But when I had a larger studio, it was like I said, I love to work on things like in families, so they kind of grow together and I can kind of look at everything at the same time. So it's a little trickier. I've been here, less than a year at this place, and it's not the most comfortable, but I am making it work to the best of my ability. So
you do what you can with what you got, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm doing it.
You keep talking about resolution and healing. You find that's what art does for you a lot of times?
Well, like I said earlier, it's the way that I feel me through the world. It's the way I make sense of things. I think I've always been one to want to know the truth about things, including myself, so when there seems to have been tricky parts of life, not so fun times of life, one of the biggest things for me is I don't want to get stuck in it. I don't want to become a bitter person. I don't want to become an angry person, a jealous person. All of that stuff still happens, but I think what I'm getting at is that I've done my best to, how would I say, clean things up in a way that I could live in the present moment and feel a sense of peace and satisfaction of where I was and how was I going to get there. Whether it's changing my thinking about things but art was always alongside, working through all of those kinds of experiences. And even, celebratory experiences and joy. And it's all of it. But when you talk about healing of like pain and circumstances and moving through uncomfortable places in life, it's absolutely, it's, I don't separate anything out, it's like work, life, art. It's like all one big thing and nothing is separate. So for me, it's definitely feels like I am able to, people get stuff stuck in them. And, you can dance it away, you can cry it away, you can yell it away, you can paint it away. I just feel like movement and sound and things to take it out of you and move through it. And while I'm moving through it by making art, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about how whether it was my fault or somebody else, just all of it seems to be able to get it into the work. And then there is this piece, there is a sense of coming to some kind of understanding, about it being okay, even if life has been uncomfortable, unfair, you fill in the whatever word you want. But I think art has always played a part of me cleaning stuff up so that I could be as much in the present moment that I could, and not dragging around all of this bullshit all of the time, like a giant train full of all these cars of, life crap. It's not like that for me. I don't have as much, I'm just really conscious of that. And art has been a huge part of doing some really deep work so that I can live a more joyous life. I mean, I really do feel like there's some really bad stuff that can happen, but, I don't want to pull it around with me anymore. And so I think it's my friend. It's been a really good friend.
So back to poetry. Who are some of your favorite poets?
Oh, like Neruda, for so many reasons. I love this Michael McClure, this book that is just torn to shreds now because I keep fucking writing in it.
What's the name of that book?
Of Indigo and Saffron. I just love that one. But I love Rilke's always been somebody I always go back to too. And I like Ian Cummings and this guy, Jean-Joseph Ravello. He's from Madagascar, and my friend back in Pittsburgh actually translated, I think, from French to English on both of these books that I have. Are amazing. I mean, there's a lot more, but I mean, it's just I don't know, for whatever reason they speak to me. So
Todd, that was funny because I had that written down.
Yeah,
I love it when we do that.
I don't like stealing your questions though, man.
No, I know that. No, but I was like, I'm right there. And I was actually when you said going back to poetry, I was like, oh, good. Now I can ask my question. And not knowing you were going to ask it. Thank you for asking that, Todd. I appreciate it.
But, I'll say this too. It's like getting out of my own personal stuff with that. And that's why I think mythology and things of that nature have been so profoundly present for me for so long, is because those archetypal patterns and those stories, when you take your own stuff and you line it up with those types of things, that has resonated so much for me, is because it's these archetypal, beautiful stories of, you can see yourself in them, and it takes it out of the personal and it becomes more of the universal archetypal journey. And I think that's when you talk about healing and things of that nature and going beyond the dilemmas that are at hand, that those kinds of stories are always super powerful, and they help to see where you're at in that journey too.
So this is funny. I'm glad we're talking about this because I just picked up Joseph Campbell again. Literally just like 3 nights ago, I was delving back into the power myth. So, yeah, I mean, it's so powerful.
There's a reason why things are still relevant. Yeah, there are, I've always been, like I said, those National Geographic and things like that when I was little. And I always, that's what my work, it's not pop culture. It's not, as much as like politics, there's all kinds of stuff in life that's very important. But with my work, I always tend to I have to go back farther. I have to go back far, ancient, original, like stuff that there's a compulsion that I cannot get away from, that's where I've got to find that root. of anything. And so it's always this constant, where I research the fuck out of stuff. Like I'm just like so much information because I have to know everything about where I'm going, whether it's like ancient Egypt and some whatever I'm doing. I need to do the deep dive. And in fact, like, even like the red work that you saw when you're at the vault, the blood roses work, like victims of Jack the Ripper and the victims of the Inquisition and female infanticide. I mean, some seriously big, dark shit. And that consumed me for years of just nothing but researching that kind of stuff. So it can get dark, it could get light, and I just follow where it needs to go, where I need to go.
You love researching and learning about this mythology and this ancient wisdom, and it plays into your work. I want to talk about some of that work, and let's talk about the Blood Roses work. Talk about this piece, Raise Your Indelible Eyes.
Well, I had done other bodies of work where like the Inquisition, the Dark Ages, the Crusades, fun times in history. But the women of the Inquisitions were focused for me. And that piece is made out of unraveled nylon rope. And so it's kind of the opposite of weaving. You're taking it apart, and I can't even tell you how long that takes to unravel rope. And every one of those threads just became like one of these women as I was researching. And that body of work in general is a pretty dark place to start all those pieces. But as you and I talked about when we were over there, looking at some of that work, that the earth and that red, that kind of sacred, ancient paradigms that other peoples had at different times about death, about, like the earth swallowing up. And, we looked at that really big piece with the doll parts on it. But they all ended in this kind of soft place, very quiet, soft place. But it was kind of sitting with that brutality and sitting with and asking the questions, like when I was talking with you, Blood Roses, it was the subtitles, The Cycle of Souls, about kind of where we come from, where do we go, almost, kind of a more spiritual, esoteric, and a lot of metaphysical, ancient, there's all of that in there. And when you're in these kinds of places, especially when I was doing that, I was actually here in Denver, I finished that in 2012. And that studio became very, very interesting. It was like a womb. It was very dark, but it was a very safe place. And I had all the pictures of the women, like the victims of Jack the Ripper. I had their whole entire biographies on the wall. I had the pictures from their autopsies. It was like a research lab, and it was like going to a cemetery. It was really dark, but there was this beauty in it. And there was this kind of like just being under the earth. It was quiet. It was damp, but it was where all these things were being dismantled and kind of reconfigured. So when you talked about the other piece too, that had the baby doll parts and things like that, big subjects, but I just felt the presence of these beings still alive. And I know that's like really woo-woo for some people, but it's not woo-woo for me. And I don't take any of that lightly. And that's really powerful kind of forces that I don't question, but they were there, and that work shows it. And that's really, I miss that, having that kind of like sacred space where you get to really open kind of those doorways to things. And, because these works take years to make. So you're in these paradigms with this energy, with these research, and it's palpable. And then one day it's all done and it goes away. And it's just, you had this wonderful interaction for how many years, and then it just closes up. So yeah, when I look at those work, it was a dark place to start, but it ended up being this beautiful, rich experience with these kinds of energies. And as I told you before, I just so happened to pick up my Neruda book the one day, and I started reading a particular poem, and I said, should be married to this piece. And then so what I did is I ended up finding these, I think it was 5, 6, 7 poems for each of these pieces. And they're beautiful. And so they're kind of a balm, like a salve. There's kind of the softness to these poems that talks about kind of similar paradigm. So yeah, I don't mind following the dark. I really don't. And then there's other work like that at More Enchanted Light, the Kavalment work, which is basically a homage to my upbringing of dancing around in the dappled sunlight of the woods, like a Alice in Wonderland types of work, So, and those pieces have pieces of my youth, like dresses that I wore, toys that I had. It's light, it's airy. So, I follow these things where they need to go, and they're very powerful when get to play there.
So the interesting thing for me is you say they were with you, the spirits of, for lack of a better word, the spirits of these victims of Jack the Ripper, but yet you felt like your space was a womb that you felt comfort in. Mm-hmm. It seems like a juxtaposition when you're, and maybe the spirits weren't, or, the feelings that you were getting weren't overwhelmingly, I would imagine it felt that in my head, it would be very kind of haunting and painful, and maybe it was all that. But can you explain that? So like when you were making this work, this dark work, and they were present, what did you feel from them?
It's a thick energy. And it's just like ancestors. I really do. It's like your ancestors are here. There's ways in which we are able to see with our eyes in front of us. And there's certain mechanisms and instruments that pick up things that, microwave, radio waves, all this kind of stuff. Well, there's the world behind our eyes. And there's these layers of space and time. So I've always been this way. I've always picked up on things. So this isn't, this isn't odd for me at all. And so that's just a way that I am in the world and feel in the world. And so when I'm in the studio, doing it's a more focused type of thing for longer periods of time with, in this particular situation, these kinds of really strong, dark, horrific things. But as the title says, it's Blood Roses, a cycle of souls. There's a neutral type of energy when you start to get a cosmic view of life. You want to go macro or micro, and you can get as far out, and it's like things become less personal. They are not scary. They're not they become symbolic. They become archetypal. You ask someone, or someone who, perhaps has gone up into space, and they kind of see that earth, and they start to see things. There's no boundaries to this. It's just the matter of perspective of when you can shift from being up front and taking things really personal on the street level. And then there's a way in which, and for me, making art, I either go down into the gritty, into these little, underneath the earth types of things, or you get this really huge cosmic views of things, and they become, like I said, like they're neutral. It's not personal anymore. It becomes symbolic. It has a very different resonance to it. And so it's like, where do we come from? Where do we go? And it happens to be that for some reason, these horrific, this is the thing that I don't question when these things come, because they come really strong. And it's not like I've done my whole career of like horrific things. And like I said, I just follow stuff where it leads. And I really found it to be at the time, how I was, it's always a reflection too. And so there was questions about, how I was treating myself and how I was treating other women. I mean, there's a lot that happens when you go on a path and you do something for a long period of time, and what starts to happen, those conversations that you have with yourself and things that are reflected back on you. And you might not be going around killing people, but how are you slicing and dicing yourself? And how are you slicing and dicing other people, especially other women? there's some big fucking questions for me. How we treat each other and things. So, it starts in a very graphic, horrific place, but there's always things that are reflected back, and can you be really honest with yourself about lots. So, that's like a whole other topic that I could go into, but I won't. So yeah, like I said, that's just like one point in time, that was like, I don't know, 2.5 years of my life that I spent there. And then it goes on to something else. And before that, it was accessory work, that was all ancient Egyptian archetypal, new buildings, the idea of building new foundations and things of that sort. So yeah, it's not like airy fairy stuff for me. It's got to be rich. It's, those impulses are really strong. And I'm pretty, I'm pretty dramatic, I guess, in my swinging of the pendulum from one thing to another. And it's like, Jesus, because, some point in time, I think I said, not only it's a responsibility to carry around this big fucking work and ship it and move it and but it's like, God, could I just have done like sailboats or like still lifes of flowers? And we could just talk about like technique and how nice the light hits this. And no, dead people. Oh,
I love this. So this is absolutely freaking fan.
That girl, man, that girl, she is. But I wouldn't have it any other way. And it is what it is. So
I appreciate you going down this road, because I find this whole thing really interesting. And I spent plenty of time reading, and I used to be an avid reader, not so much anymore. I don't know why. TikTok probably. But I used to be an avid reader, and I spent a big time talking about or reading about mass murderers and serial killers. So I can relate to where you're going. I've seen those horrific photos of, Jack the Ripper's victims, and they kind of stick with you for a while. And there'd be nights that maybe sleep didn't come as easy for me. But thank you for sharing that, because I think it's fascinating, especially somebody who's creative like you, and then you're incorporating this whole research and everything that you're in the whole, everything that you're feeling going into this art. I find this absolutely fascinating. So thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
So we're talking about channeling these things that they come through you.
They present let's say, God, how to
let me ask you this.
This is like I think it's more like it's a dance.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has a energetic component to it. And I really think that things present themselves to you, whether I see them and it's a person, it's in human form, it's an experience, it's a feeling, it's the nature. And it just so happens there's a lot that we don't see with our eyes. And so I literally cannot remember a time where I didn't feel the things. But I would say that it's more like it presents how you phrase it. And it happens when it's a big opening and something's calling you to engage with it in that way. And that's usually when, I start a big body of work. Sometimes, it's a personal thing, and sometimes it's close to home. And then sometimes it just comes up from something else that I've been reading. And it's just like you somehow, I don't know, I don't know how it happens, but I know when I can't tell why, but it happens. And I just trust at this point that you follow it. Because if you don't, it just, goes away. Somebody else will get it.
Sure.
Yeah. I love it.
And I guess that's why I was going down that path of you're just kind of channeling it. You're not necessarily processing it at the time. You said that when we were in the vault the other day, that sometimes it's some time afterwards that you actually realize what some of these pieces were about and what was going on at the time.
Exactly. I think it's and that's why I never get bored. I don't have this plan. I really don't know what's happening. It's like that scavenger hunt thing again, and then it's a great place to be when you don't know what's going to happen, because you get to be surprised. I think I like being surprised about what is going to occur. Let
me ask you this question. I've asked this to other artists. Would you consider yourself an empath?
Absolutely. I consider myself a lot of things, but yeah, always been. Yeah, always been.
What are some of those other things then?
Love that.
That's a different conversation. Yeah. Super highly sensitive, very highly intuitive, all that kind of stuff. And I think the thing is that for whatever reason, I was able to not have it kind of eclipsed by anything. I fought in my corner for a long fucking time, like all through high school, college, whether it was my parent, any kind of pressures to do this, do that. I fought in my corner to hold on to all this, and make it be a constant, a presence in my life, being creative, making artwork. And then I wasn't going to not do it. So there's something about if you keep that light on, you don't have to do the restart. It's always been so present, and I've always protected it, and I've always cultivated that and found that to be very, very, very important. So I never stopped and then had to figure out how to start again. I was really clear about certain things in my life that I wasn't going to do because I didn't want to compromise art. Let's say kids, I just knew I was like, I want this, and this is going to be my thing. And I can't not do it. So let's just be really clear about what I'm probably not going to do in my life and things of that nature. So, maybe that's why over time, it's just that it's like a muscle. It just gets more developed and more fine tuned as you go on with life, because nothing has really got in the way to disrupt it. And so maybe that was something that being very, very clear about that it's non-negotiable. Let's just put it that way. So all of those other things are very easy to continue because I haven't had to stop and then start again or compromise a lot. There's been some very subtle things, but.
And you're always working.
Pretty much. Obviously this has been a little strained, moving and trying to set things up and but I did a whole body of work. I've been working on a commission, and I have other art freelance work and things of that nature. So I'm always working, but if I had a studio, I would probably be working more how I would like to be working. Let's just put it that way. Does that make sense? I don't know if any of this is making sense.
It all makes sense.
It is. It all makes sense. I love it. This is a great conversation. I want to ask you a question. I think I know the answer to this. So when you're in a dark place, your art is dark, and when you're in a light place, is your or not? I don't
know. I don't know. I don't think that would be true.
Okay.
I think when I'm in, I think sometimes, when I say curiosity will take you to, I'm not necessarily was in a dark place when I was making Blood Roses or some other heavier kinds of work, but my curiosity will take me into I guess if we want to bring into mythology, the underworld. I don't mind going down into the basement. I don't mind following these things where I'm completely fine, but something is calling me and I'm curious enough to kind of follow this path and then uncover whatever is there. And so, I don't know if that's true all the time, maybe in a dark place, but I will go into dark places.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because one of my favorite songwriters from the 70s and 80s and 90s, he wrote his best breakup songs when he was in love and in a great relationship. And then when he was brokenhearted or out of a relationship, he wrote the best love songs. It was really weird that he had to be he would flip it, and, so I was just kind of curious.
Yeah. Well, I haven't tracked it that closely, but
yeah. Well, I think you nailed it though. You allow yourself to go to those places and experience it through a different sense and then bring it through your art. So that was great. Thanks.
When people view some of this work in galleries, does it affect them? Because I will say that when I was in that vault with you the other day, I can feel the emotion. These pieces are emotional and it emanates off of them. And I was feeling emotional while we were there looking at this art, at the pieces,
Well, there's a lot to be said about that as far as, when you could walk in a room and you're like, wow, this just feels so good in here. Or you walk in a room like, what the fuck just happened? You can walk into places and you just get a sense of what happened there or what has been happening there. It's a residue. There's remnants of things that remain in places. And I do feel strongly that just like you said, there's a imprint the act, of the emotions, of the layering of whatever that was happening for me in that work. Not necessarily just say, you know, people will get their own take on it and will feel different things about their own life. But it is palpable. And I do feel that, you know, most of my work, you know, that I feel strongly about has that for sure. I love to be a fly on the wall and watch people look at the work when they don't know who I am. And I really enjoyed it because I really feel you can see their faces change and their demeanor change. And you're really, all of a sudden you feel like, wow, there is a connection being made. And it's just, I mean, it's what a privilege. Again, to be able to make work. And then, yeah, it's a really lovely thing to watch people engage with it. And then they take their own meaning and their experience away, which is great. I don't need to explain my stuff to them. It's like a song, you know, you want people to, you know, we all have our own interpretations of music, and then you make the mistake of, you know, hearing what the musician said it was. You're like, no. No. This is what this is about. But yeah, so I allow that. I'm not have to have people understand why I did something. I'm not like that. So
I think it'd be fun to sit there and watch them, and watch the people that like don't get it. Like they just don't understand it, and they just like look at it and go, I don't know, and walk away. And then the other ones that like really like has it, you know, it appeals to them. They can feel something from it. I bet you that's kind of interesting.
Well, the funny thing was I noticed early on when I first started making like the work that it's sort of in the same vein where it's very like decadent, like the textures and the materials and things. And so I always call it, so a lot of times when I watch people walk in the room and they do the NASCAR, you know, they just go on the outer perimeter and then they go back out. And I realized I was watching and there was a lot more people were stopping. And especially like if there were two people together and maybe one person was definitely, you could tell the person that was there that wanted to be there and the other person that might have just come along with. And to see both of them start to get engaged and they kind of look around, and then I'll introduce myself because I can kind of see them like and what's fun about it was that some people might not maybe, as you say, get it or be engaged with, you know, the context of the work and all that, but they're very intrigued with, how did you make it? What is this? What is that? And so they're breaking it down in a different way and enjoying it in a completely different. And for me, it's the same. It's just enjoying what I do, and I get to talk about it, and we get to exchange a nice conversation. And yeah, and that's good for me, which is fine. You know, they stopped. They didn't do the NASCAR. It got their attention enough to want to ask questions, and I'll take it.
Do a lot of people touch your work? Because when I was there, I
wish they wouldn't.
I know you probably don't want them to, but I had this incredible desire.
Yes.
And I wasn't going to, because I know that some of it is fragile, but I really just wanted to touch it.
I know.
I really wanted to rub my hands on it and feel the texture.
How do you want to touch my work? Yeah, well, maybe I'll let you. No, yeah, well, you know, you want to see, yeah, I mean, I get it.
Well, your stuff is very tactile looking.
Yes.
I mean, it looked like you just want to like run your fingers through it, or, you know, and I'm a tactile person.
If I catch you, I will do not do that. Do not do that.
I and you know, some people just want to, and I'm kind of that way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can refrain, like if I'm in a museum, I can totally refrain where, you know, my wife will get like right up against it, and I'm like, you need to back off because they're going to come. But I do want to touch it.
My work has held up even when grabby hands have made a little bit of a, you know, difference of pulling shit off or scratching it. It's fixable, so it's good. It's all right. I can manage.
You talked about how much you're enjoying being back in Denver. Mm-hmm. And the community, and I know that you've made new connections here, and I think you feel like you're back home. Yeah, I
do. I do.
I want you to speak a little bit about how you feel about the Denver community and kind of contrast or compare it to, without the peripheral stuff, with Pittsburgh and the art community there.
Well, go ahead.
because I'm just curious, Pittsburgh seems like it's a pretty happening place. There's a lot of art going on. Is that true, or is?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, there's a lot going on. But again, it's you can throw yourself into a lot of different circles in a lot of different cities, and they could basically maybe have the same amount of things going on, but there's something about the resonance of the way people engage with you, how open they are, what kind of new ideas might be happening because it is in a different part of the country. And for me, Pittsburgh was really good to me. I'd been showing there for a long, long time because I was in Cleveland, so it was 2 hours away. So early on, I was showing there and selling and blah, blah, blah. And I have lots of peers and friends back in Pittsburgh. So it's lovely. However, just because our community is working for you and you have, it doesn't mean it feels like home, like you want to put roots down. That's another level of wanting to develop as a person and as an artist. And for me, coming back to Denver, it does feel that way for me, which I didn't know what to expect. I just knew that something in me was like, this is the right place for me. But now everything is basically mirroring back that I did make that right decision, and that the feelings that I had about it were, I did have something kind of calling me to come back. So, I'm really in a lot of gratitude for the people that I knew here, whether it was like other, artists that I had already been friends with or just friends in general and family. But also, I am really grateful to Bridge, like Brett Matarazzo and Michael Dowling when I first went there, and they, now I'm having a show there. So I'm very appreciative of going there and meeting them and then being offered a show. And then in the process of that, I'm just kind of trying to get out of my normal routine and going to openings and such. And then, knowing that I could be showing again in Denver was really exciting. But then I started meeting more artists from there and people that I didn't know. They were in a completely different circle than I had been friends with when I first lived here. And so that's just been absolutely delightful for so many reasons. And I just kind of stand back and I really find it exciting to see what other people are doing, and I'm really just pleasantly surprised at just how much Denver feels like it is changed in the 6 years that I've been gone. I mean, then there's a lot to, there's improvements of things. I think we all start talking about what we'd like more things to be like. However, right now, coming out of a pandemic is a pretty good, things are doing pretty good. We're all starting to find ourselves in new places and connections. And so, for me, meeting a lot of the artists through there has been enlightening. And it feels like a sense of being able to talk about art and what we want to do and help each other out is like I said, is different for me because I was very much, I have a lot of friends and things, but I kind of siloed myself off for a while, and I don't see myself like that anymore. And it's really great because I think that I'm having a really, really different experience now. So yay for me for not, for opening up and starting to see new possibilities of supporting other people and helping other people. And it's very, very different now. And I think Denver has a very, very lovely thing happening. There's lots of different things happening. And so I couldn't speak to all of them. I'm not that, still new getting back here, but getting the lay of the land and just this part of the country in general. Yeah.
I agree. I interacted with an artist from Chicago this past weekend. He felt like Denver was like really just, there was some energy to it that was just really happening and exciting, and he was jazzed about being here. He didn't think that he felt that same thing as far as the art community and what was going on in the art scene in Chicago as compared to Denver.
People are doing good work here and they're very kind. They're very open to allowing you to step in to their circles. And it's absolutely a real difference from other places that I know other people live. Not quite like this. So I think they're kind of jealous, but I don't want them to know how good it is because I don't want them to come here. Too many people are already here.
Unless you come from Ohio, you can come. If you're from Ohio, you can come on out. We like you.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Like I said, I'm still kind of like, wow, it'll be really interesting to see what this year brings, and developing all these relationships and getting myself kind of my feet, like I said, more rooted and starting to branch out literally into what's on next on the docket. And it'll be, I think it's going to be really good.
I agree. And shout out to Matarazzo and
Brett and Michael.
And Dowling, Michael Dowling.
Absolutely.
What they're doing, I think, is really significant. And I think that place feels like, to me, it feels like a home. I've made so many connections, and they're providing such an incredible service to the community, not only the art community, but to the community in general, and exposing people to art and all the different things that they do in that space.
Absolutely. I mean, I've met some wonderful artists, like Alex Branch and Eric Anderson and Brett Fox and Jen Starling. They've just become really lovely people to me, and I'm really grateful to it's sometimes you find a magical place with magical people, and don't question it.
So the show that opens at Bridge on the 10th, you have that very front room.
Yep.
So people are going to see your work as soon as they walk in. What kind of stuff can they expect to see when they go in there?
Yeah. So most of the show it's like these rusted tones, lots of hand-torn paper, white. So it's just like kind of very monochromatic palette, but the color of the rust is real rust. It's a 2-part paint. So it has these particles of iron in it. So then when you put this activator, it literally rusts. So it's kind of, I love it. It's like time just got in there and did its thing. They're calm for the most part, like more of a calm, meditative feeling to some of a lot of the hand-torn paper, very intricate. So as you get up into it, they're kind of like, they're not perfect, they're all frayed. And then the one piece that's from a different body of work called the sachet work that's the one that has the women's slip and all this decadent, like plastic flowers and things that have all been coated in that rust paint. So it looks like it's, just old, weird, organic, metal, but she's a pretty one. So yeah, lots of nice texture and calmness, and it'll be interesting to see what this all looks like in this space. Tuesday's my install day, so
excited.
I'm excited, and yeah. So String of the Bessin is a one of the pieces from a body of work called Seshet, and Seshet is this ancient Egyptian goddess of like writing. She's like the scribe to the pharaoh. And there's all these foundation rituals that the pharaoh would call on her when they were going to build a building. And it's just wonderful and juicy. And there's so much there. But what ended up being for me is at that time is this whole laying of a foundation and all these types of things. And that became this beautiful metaphor for this, like she was like this guide for me of building a new life, because I had just moved to Denver at that point for the first time back in 2008, I think. So all these foundation rituals and, it was just this beautiful deep dive into this mythology and these kinds of paradigms that were mirroring my own life, and it just beautiful, like feminine and dynamic mythology sort of my own life. It was, it's like I said, it's this layered constellation type of way of working, and look at the bottom of that piece. It's just crazy. I love it. I just want to be a little tiny thing and get in there like a little bug or something and crawl around in there. So one of those pieces is going to be in the show. But all of that research, like I said, when I go into a body of work like that, it's just crazy, and I love it. And I just get to dive in there and understand these things. And then it starts to mirror back my own life, and it just becomes this rich, all these metaphors, and you just feel like you're in something really special whirling around, and you're trying to find the right materials and put it in there, and you don't quite know what I'm doing, but then all of a sudden becomes this point where everything starts to feel just right. and you're basically riding this wave of the materials coming into place, right? The language of the way that you feel, all of it starts to make sense. And it's probably one of the best feelings when you feel like you tapped in and everything starts to feel like it is coming right where it needs to be. Because before that, it all feels like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. It's years. I'm in this thing, just gluing, manipulating material. I haven't touched paint. What does this mean? And then sometime that just like, it's like, they call it like the tipping point. And it really is like that, where all this research and all this inner work and all this stuff meets and it all comes in this, like I said, this hologram. And it's this very rich, world that as I look around the studio and all this work is like kind of mirroring back, and I'm a very pleasing feeling at that point when that happens, because I know that means it's starting to close in and I'll be done at some point, and I get to kind of sit back and enjoy that little journey I got to take.
So what piece from that series is going to be at the Bridge show? It's
called Sesh It, and then the second title of it's Love Letters. A lot of my work has double titles.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can pull that up.
Yeah, I am going to pull that up. And for people that are listening, go to the portfolio, find that series, Sesh It. Mm-hmm. And then you can see this beautiful piece. It's
and like I said, that's all the book covers on the back, and it's got all that abstract text engraved, and then it's all the found like plastic flowers and things like that at the bottom. And then there's always, well, not always, but in this particular work and then some other series where at the top left, there's kind of this rusted section. And then there's like a string that hangs down. I don't know if you can see it, but then there's like this little bag of like pearls. And then underneath are these little baby hands that are coming out of the rusted portion. And people are like, what does this mean? I'm like, well, pearls for me have this beautiful kind of potentiality of wisdom, and it's like a gift in these little hands underneath it. And a lot of my work has that, and I like it. It's a little magical thing that happens there. But it started in like 2004, and that big piece that you saw at my storage unit called The Bride. And it's sort of stuck with the work that has like like a slip or a dress in it. And I don't do that kind of work anymore, but at the time it tends to have like a similar thing up in the left-hand corner. There's this like kind of stuff happening in this little string that hangs down in this bag of pearls. And that happened a handful of times in some work. So
it's absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
All of your work is absolutely stunning.
Hopefully it reads pretty good at the show.
It will. I mean, that's a perfect space for it, I think. And, and for these really large pieces, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Well, I hope people enjoy that. I have a feeling they will, and I really do hope people come down and come out and able to see it. And there's other things going on at Bridge at the same time with my show, so let's just be clear about that. Eric Anderson's curating a group show, and it's like Charles Livingston is I think right behind me. No, he's in the other room. So yeah, there's two other events happening.
Well, I love that piece. That's a great piece.
Mine, so
I love it. I can't. I hope to see it in person.
Yeah, you better get down there. Come on, top.
Well, it runs through the 2nd of October. That's correct. Yeah.
I believe so. And then I have another solo show at G44 in Colorado Springs in October. So I'm like,
let's just keep it going. So I'm
keeping it going.
If you have a gallery in space, Brenda needs a November show.
I do. And then I'll take December off for my birthday, so I'll be able to have some rest time.
And then we'll hit it hard back in January.
Yeah, well, I'd like to be full force making some new work is that's where I'd like to be. That's where I'm going to vision myself at.
So then let's pivot to Colorado Springs. So you're in this gallery down there, G44.
Well, and actually, we're all like, I'm going down there. I think Michael Dowling has his show tomorrow. So down there. Oh, it's lovely. G44, lovely. I'm really excited about showing you.
And how did that all come about? Did they reach out to you?
No, actually, I reached out to them because of Heidi Young. I saw a post. Heidi Young's a wonderful artist and a friend. And I was like, oh, what's this gallery? I don't really know too much. Again, like moving back to Denver. And so I just reached out and I ended up taking some work there and she kept it. and asked for some more, and she sold some work. And so everything just kind of kept going. And then unfortunately for the artist who was scheduled in October had some health issues and, withdrew the show. So she said, "Hey, do you want the slot?" And I said, "Absolutely. Let's try to figure this out." And we did. So that's going to happen next month.
And what kind of work are we going to see there?
Ink transfers it's my sculpture is black, kind of odd shapes, kind of monolith looking things. And they're ink transfers on a wood panel and then one on acrylic. But then there are also some drawings. So it's a smaller space, kind of trying to select just the right work that kind of works off each other. So it's going to be works on paper and the ink transfers. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And the work that you currently have down at G44
are the more like landscape looking ink transfers. And then the weird, like I said, like those black shapes that are my sculpture. Those are the smaller, like 9x12 ones. Yep. And those are on like acrylic. They're just like milky. They look like they're encaustic almost. And that's like a cropped version of the piece that you're looking at. I'm really liking exploring this. And I have so much sculpture that is sold, so much that I don't have the actual sculpture anymore, but the images I really like. It's almost like an iconography for me. Some of the bodies of work where I have tons of images of my sculpture, and I really would like to go back and manipulate some of these images and start to do like more ink transfers, because I really like these shapes. But I say shapes meaning like when I was little and I would go to the museums and things like that, and I didn't really know what I was looking at, vessels and these sacred objects for rituals, all of that stuff. When I would be walking through the art museum in Cleveland, I still have that real, I look at objects that I don't understand what they were used for. And they were very mysterious to me. And so my sculpture feels very like I've made that in a similar vein. And, there's a lot of other reasons why I make it, but I like that feeling of like, there's this object and just like, there's no apparent use for it, but it has this kind of enigma feeling to it. It's very mysterious. And I have so many images that I think I'd like to revisit and start to, that's like one of those things where I think that's like one body of work that I would like to do, but I would like to do them larger. Like the one that I'm looking at right now that I have here is about 5 feet. 6 feet, which isn't really huge for me, but it's a nice size to work at in a space that I have right now. So yeah, I'd like to kind of continue this, but maybe change the coloring or explore like different bodies of work of sculpture from my past. So that's one thing.
So the ink transfer, is that a toner based ink? Laser? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's laser. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that sits on the surface rather than inkjet that's like in the paper. So yeah, the laser, it's easy to transfer. But I also like work on top of it with some like of that rust paint. And it's also like this particular piece that we're looking at is on acrylic sheet, which again, it changes the way the light, because the light goes through that thin film of the transfer and goes through the acrylic and then hits like the white of the board. There's just this strangeness to the way the light is working with it. Again, for as flat as this work is compared to my other work, it's still like that surface is very interesting, let alone just like the imagery, but the surface itself is intriguing when you get up close. It's like, it's so flat, but there's so much going on. And for me, I don't know, I guess I find that to be necessary.
And the red part in the upper right-hand corner, that's the paint that's reactive.
The rust. Yeah. And I water it down and I play with it when it's wet and I let it drip and I turn, it's just almost like an act in of itself of trying to like move it around and and you really don't know how it's going to dry, because it just depends on how heavy handed or how much you dilute it. And it's like this dance, especially when I have like a bigger 5 foot to 6 foot piece, I'll throw a fan on it and make the water move a certain way. And then like hit you just, while it's all wet. So it's like it's like a performance art when I'm doing that at the end. But it's really, I really enjoy it. So I think that's definitely one of the avenues I'd like to explore for sure.
Well, I love that piece too. That's really cool. I'd love to see that in person.
Thanks. Yeah, there's eight little guys like that, and there's one big one. And yeah,
oh, wow.
There you go.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then how long is that at G44?
Well, she had those up in the back room. I don't know if she's got those up this red hot minute because Michael Dowling shows up right now, and I haven't been. I'm go down there tomorrow to see it. But anything of those that aren't sold might work their way into this show because I have larger pieces on that are similar, like the black kind of sculpture thing. But they're like 4 feet by like 2 feet, and there's 4 of those, and then there's a bigger one. So yeah, see how it's always a little dance and balancing the show visually to make sure that it feels nice.
I absolutely love these pieces.
Thanks.
This Lumina Lumen.
Yeah.
series.
Lumina Lumen. Yeah.
Lumina Lumen.
Lumina
Okay.
Lumen. I love it. I just, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Latin and all kinds of other languages.
I don't know what it is about them, but when I first saw those, you posted on my Instagram, I was like, oh my God, that's so beautiful.
Well, what's really interesting. I'll share this with you. And I'm looking at that. I'm looking off to my right because I have the big piece that's going to be in the show. And I said big piece, meaning it's like 5 or 6 feet. That piece was the last piece that I actually made before I moved from Pittsburgh, and it was the first experiment I'd ever done, like on this big acrylic sheet, because someone gave me a frame, and the acrylic was shitty, so I wasn't going to frame anything out of it. I was like, I don't want to throw it away. What can I do? And I was like, oh, you can transfer and try it. And that piece to me, if I can remember how I felt when I was doing this, it was just, it was this manipulated, and I say like manipulated meaning like kind of stretched image of my sculpture, this black sculpture. And so I would fit in the format. And I purposely, like in Photoshop, I was adding this warmth element in the back, like it's similar to the stuff that you have on the screen. But I really felt like it was like something about the West. It was something about, I was longing for something, this warmth. And I kept thinking about, I really wanted to just, I was so unhappy in Pittsburgh for so many reasons, but I just remember feeling like if I could just get out and be out West again. And I feel like when I made this piece that I'm looking at, which then the smaller pieces are similar, there's this dark, enigmatic kind of body of the shape, this thing. And then there's this light coming in from the side, this warmth, this glow. And that was when I was really longing to be back out West. And so the fact that I'm just like sitting here talking with you, looking at that work, looking at this work to my right, I'm going to have that in show, and it kind of really comes off full circle. So, that's the kind of stuff that you can't make up. I love it.
Yeah, I can't say enough about that series. It's just striking. How do you go about pricing your work? We ask this question to every single person we have on.
Well, I think it's easier now because it's like 27 years later. So do you know what I mean? Like in the beginning, it's more tricky. Like what the fuck, so I think it's just a matter now. It's like, I have, more than 25 years of selling work, and it's, been a slow trajectory. I always try to, be really, kind of spot on, not too low, not too high. What does that mean? Well, that has to come with my history of pricing and selling. So now it's kind of like it all it's easier now just because it came from all of that turmoil of what should I sell this for? Why? Blah, 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 blah. And so when I'm looking at a piece like those small, what is those, like 12 by 9, they're $400, but when you start getting in, I mean, I think the thing of it is those are easy to price. Anything that's like, I don't know, 4 feet and under. But then when you start getting into some of those larger pieces of mine, how did I come up with that pricing? Well, I didn't just do a 90-inch piece out of nowhere. I remember, if I could just like go back in time to like my first really big piece that was like 96 by, I don't know, say like 48 or something. It's really tall and thin. That was like 1998 or something. And maybe I sold that for, I think, $2,000, and I went to Europe on the money. Do you know what I mean? Like I can remember things like that. But then incrementally, it's just like, oh, that becomes like 4,000, becomes 6,000, and then pretty much it's just this incremental phase. Now, it was also in part, not just from me, but also from working with galleries. So there's always people that are very, for the most part, helpful in that department when you're working with an art dealer or a gallery that can be of assistance with that. But I feel really comfortable with my pricing now and kind of how that is. And it was never like some skyrocketed thing that went from 0 to now this is a $20,000 piece. No, it moved slowly and incrementally, and I'm not, in a hurry to try to do anything else. It's just nice, slow and steady. And you sell 10 more pieces, nice, slow and steady, sell 20 more pieces. And it just slowly increases. And it would be a different conversation, say like 15 years ago, that would have been like, why, how much did you do? How long did this take you? Well, now it's like, I have how many decades of worth of experience. So, it took me that long to understand how to use my materials, how to work with it, what feels like, again, it always comes back to integrity of trying to be fair, and I don't get yourself in a pickle, because I was with a gallery for a while in Atlanta, which that was oh my God, that's a story and a half. But, they wanted to skyrocket prices. And, you get in a dangerous situation when you start doing that, because I'm in the belief, and I guess if I would say one thing about pricing is just price it. And that's what it is. Meaning like wherever it is, wherever you are in the world. And so I'll be the same, just because you're in one city and they should be the same. That's one thing. But those one gallery really tried to and he sold some really big pieces, but I don't know, you can get yourself in a conundrum that way, because what do you do then when you start having to step back from that? When they've inflated your work, the pricing, it just seemed inflated to me at some point. It just didn't feel like, wait a second, this is not sustainable at this point. And so I had to kind of bring it back a little bit, and it felt better. And that's, but I left that gallery because, so how do I put this in a short story? Owed me a lot of money from some sales. I had to get a lawyer. Thank goodness, just a demand letter did the deed. But I wasn't special, because I found out later that he owed like $650,000 to a bunch of artists. And most of those artists didn't see a lot of that money. And also I had to go down there and rescue my work. So I used Craters and Freighters down in Atlanta, and we rescued my work out of there. Got a designated truck, so I can tell you how much a semi costs you to do that. And then it took me 4 months to clean and repair my work, because it was in such bad shape, because I did not handle it well. So I know that went from one subject of pricing to another, but just, wherever you get your information from, as far as like, people are giving you advice, that person had a lot of things that were not so good about their business practice. So do your research before you get involved with people. And that was a big lesson. I had to put my big girl pants on and fly down there and, get guys from this company to go and find my work, find the crate. I mean, it was like a movie. It was horrible at the time. I can laugh about it now. And then, $6,000 later for that truck, the semi, it wakes you up really quick. And I survived and all of that. But, yeah, just, when people give you advice, or, take it with a grain of salt, check in with yourself before you commit to raising your prices or doing business with a gallery or whatever it is. So yeah, lessons to be learned.
Thank you for sharing that. That was.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like war story. Not so bad.
Yeah. Those are the kind of stories that people need to hear too, because it's not always, rosy, shiny stuff.
Well, you get all the, in a certain gal or whatever, you get this like, oh, life's going to be different if this happened. You make up all these fantastical stories about like, fairy tale endings and how life's going to, and it's nice when really nice things happen. But when you put the rosy glasses on and you're not checking in with your inner compass and you completely are ignoring things because it looks really good, and you follow that, and then you realize it's like the man behind the curtain and it's a charade. You're like, oh, fuck. Yeah. Had the little feeling, didn't follow it because it's all, shiny and glittery, but then you're in a really, really nasty circumstance that I would not want anybody to be in. So lesson learned.
So is most of your work sold through galleries? In conversation the other day, you said that you have quite a few collectors.
Yeah, over time, and the only thing that I would say is tricky. Like when you move a lot, you kind of screw up some relationships. Things just drop out. People forget about you, blah, blah, blah. So when you're in the same place for a long time, it's even better. So, but yeah, I did, whether it was Cleveland or Pittsburgh and here when people bought my work, and it was I would say, well, I don't know, 50-50. I would have to look at all my sales, but I think it's pretty 50-50, like throughout my, whatever, 20 some years, through galleries, just depends on where it was. But yeah, I'm so appreciative. A lot of people have bought a lot of work, big and small. Yeah, really grateful because it just goes back into, making more work and sharing and getting to, do this thing. And those people have been so lovely. I've got the best people. And everybody's like, who buys your work? I was like, I can't put like a demographic or a kind of person. No, all different kinds of lovely human beings. So I've had the privilege to interact with. And, I know the older that you get and you're still doing this thing, and it's still a huge part of my life. You keep finding new people and new pockets that go, hey, where'd you come from? That's I think I want to get this. I think I want to live with this. You're like, wow. Still always delightful when that happens. Don't take it for granted, I guess is what I'm saying.
Social media, love it? Hate it?
Don't love it, and I don't hate it. I am literally smack dab in the middle.
You sell any work off social media?
Oh, fuck no. No. Who's gonna, but come on. I mean, what are you gonna, maybe a drawing could pop? No, I've never, ever thought that would be a way for me. Not most of the work I do. It's fun to share. I haven't been on Facebook for like 10 years. I quit that a long time ago. That was just a shit show. So, Instagram is fine. It's a great way to share and connect with people. I have like a newsletter and all that kind of old school stuff. That's great for people that still like that. So yeah, I find it's a good thing to do, and I do have fun with it sometimes. And then it's the responsibility of just doing stuff. You're like, I got to do that thing. It's not,
And just in case you were wondering, Facebook is still a shit show. It's changed.
I would have bet money on it. It's not for me. And then I do like YouTube for me just has like a handful of some, like, basically, I don't even know if they're really that great as far as quality, but the content of it is interesting. So when I'm explaining verbally, which I think is really difficult for people to understand when I'm explaining how I make work, like how you take 2-3 years to make a body of work. Well, what the hell, how does that take so long? Why do I put basically slideshow videos up there. So you can say, I want to know what those, the blood roses looked like at the beginning when you're just gluing stuff on, or the sesh at work, and what's kind of buried underneath. That's basically all I ever put up there, is process little videos and stuff like that. So when people go, how do you do that? Well, here's a good video that you might find interesting. And it's way better than me trying to describe it. I just really feel like it's easier to do that. But that's all I do. Some in process and some Instagramming. But I have met some lovely people, and it's nice to be connected in this way. When if you didn't have that, well, then you kind of, I think it'd be sad to miss out on some nice connections that I've had in sharing and seeing what other people do. That's tolerating it.
So I should cancel my friend request on Facebook to you.
Doesn't exist. But see, we get to hang out anyways.
Exactly.
If we want to.
I'd much rather do that.
And that, that's a whole other topic, but connection for me lately with people is paramount. Absolutely paramount. I'm getting to the point where it's at one, in a few years or whatever, it's there's probably going to be less time in front of me than there is behind me. And I really do feel like investing quality time with people in person for whatever reason, whether it's art related or not, is I'd like that to be, focus instead of how many likes and all of those things and followers. And it's just that, to me, it's insatiable. You'll never get enough to make you feel better. And so I think when you're actually sitting down with people, getting to know them and seeing what they're doing, it's so much more rich and so much more meaningful. So yeah, that's where I'm putting more of my energy in.
Anything else that you want to talk about that you have coming up that we didn't already talk about, as far as any shows or anything exciting that's in the works?
Let me think. Oh, my work was featured in Southwest Contemporary
Oh, that's
magazine.
right. Yes.
Yeah, and the Inhale Exhale, Volume 3, that I was in there. Yeah, coming show at Bridge, then at G44, and then really, I'm in a place where the idea of gallery representation shows up for me. So I don't know kind of what would be a good fit. And so, maybe dappling around town to see kind of what's going on and how I feel about that as far as my investigating and connecting and things like that. But I still feel like I'm floating a bit. But other than that, it's new work, playing around. Yeah, the beginnings.
Wes, you got any questions?
Got anything for me,
So
Wes?
I'm gonna go back to one of my old standards.
I hope it's like I just feel like it's like so serious with me sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, could I just get a little more lighthearted?
Sure. So here's my old standby. As an artist, what makes an artist bold?
I think being integrous, because usually what that means is you're going to get a really big peak or a really big valley. It's going to be something big. And it usually has to do with being vulnerable at some level, in a way, like no hiding. That's where all that power is, being in that present moment and being bold as being seen. And I think a lot of us, it's really easy to hide behind a lot of things in artwork, whether it's technique, you can name your veil that you choose to hide behind. But there's a point to which I think, especially when you get older, you realize it's a really, when you feel like you're just about to be exposed, or you're being, that's where it's at, is that vulnerability and to being really integrous with where you are. I think that's boldness for me. And I think that's where I'm trying to move towards, is that, what is that for me? Yeah. So I think hopefully I'm going to answer that question in art form at some point, but I'm moving towards it.
Well, I think you do. I mean, the pieces that I've seen tonight and a little bit on your Instagram page, they're really bold, and I think they're authentic when you look at them. And I can't wait to see them in person, because it's going to be a whole new experience for me. But yeah, so it's been a really a pleasure, to get to know you and to sit down tonight and have a more in-depth conversation. So, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it so much that you came on to our show. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Wes. I appreciate that.
Any other advice you'd like to leave for aspiring artists out there, especially people at the beginning of their career?
What would I say? The phrase "know yourself" is a real kind of simple, elegant phrase. I think there's a lot of static in the world. You can call it social media, call it a lot of things that can hijack your inner compass. And I feel that the less static you have in your life, and the more kind of you can pull yourself in some alone time and get really clear, your work will be more clear. It won't be, there's a fine line between, you looking and feeling and getting inspired by other people's work, but there's also the point to where you have to really get quiet in a certain sense and kind of take part of yourself and listen to your inner compass there. I think I would have liked to have had more of that advice early on, is to trust yourself enough to what's kind of being directed to you from you, rather than it's like the world behind your eyes versus the world that you're seeing in front of your eyes. It's that fine line. Do you know what I mean? So I think the more that you actually go inside and you find your own world and you have that backbone, I think better work comes from it. I think I would have liked to have heard more of that kind of talk early on with me, to trust that. So that would be my 2 cents at this point. Take it or leave it. Don't know.
I'd buy that for $1.
But it's cheap. It really is, though. And I think why I'm saying that is because it's something that I have to remind myself of still. So if there's something that's still relevant for me after all this time, wishing that would have been more planted in my head early on, it's probably something that's important. So, but yeah, I'm so happy that I got to be here with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Absolutely been an honor. I feel like you're doing incredibly. I discussed it the other day with you at the vault. I think you're doing incredibly powerful and important work. And I think obviously time will tell, but I think 100 years from now, you'll be part of that conversation for sure.
Thank you.
Again, you can check out Brenda's work in person here in Denver at the Bridge Project near the Highlands Bridge at 1553 Platte Street, Unit 100. Her solo exhibition is entitled Elegy for What Has Passed. It runs through the 10th of September through October 2nd. And look for her exhibition at G44 Gallery, located in Colorado Springs at 121 East Boulder Street in October. As always, all of this information can be found in this week's episode notes. For the Tenant Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown.
Have a great week.